Welcome, everybody. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Need Some Introduction. I'm your host, Victor, and on this podcast, we go week to week covering something that we're watching on TV and recommending movies and TV shows to watch along with that content. In today's episode, we'll be discussing the sixth episode of season 1 of Pluribus. As usual, on these conversations, I'm joined by Sona.
Hi.
Hi, Sona. How was your Thanksgiving?
It was so good. I had mentioned before that we're doing something different by just staying home. So we went to the parade in the morning. So I was awake earlier than I like to be on a day that I don't work. I was awake earlier than I would be on a day that I work. But we went to the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. It's something I haven't done for probably 25 years. It was very cold, but also very entertaining. And most importantly, my 8-year-old son, who has events fall into generally two categories. It was worth it or it was a scam. Declared the Thanksgiving Day Parade worth it.
Wow.
So
Perfect.
that made it all worthwhile. And we just came home, relaxed. I had ordered catering. So we did a very low key, chill dinner, and it was lovely. How was your Thanksgiving? You traveled.
We did. We traveled up north and we had a beautiful drive up on the day before Thanksgiving. We got to the mountain. We took a route that goes up past Albany, near Albany, because it avoids all the traffic. It takes maybe 20 minutes longer, but it's more scenic. And we never run into any kind of crazy traffic like when we drive through the cities on the way up there. And we had this beautiful sunset just as we approached the mountains, and you could see the fog rolling off the mountains, and it was an incredible. My daughter was taking pictures of it. It was incredible. The problem, of course, is we drove through the mountains after sunset, and that fog was still there.
Oh no, that's terrifying.
It was utterly terrifying, and my daughter was freaking out the whole entire time. She's, Dad, how are you able to drive? Because we couldn't see anything. Couldn't see 5 feet in front of the car. And
That's terrifying. I'm getting anxiety in my stomach just listening to you talk about this.
It was very stressful. It was the most stressful thing. And there were very few cars on the path, so we couldn't even follow the headlights ahead. And I was telling her, she's like, how could you even drive? And I'm like, I'm looking at only the line in the road. Like I literally was like playing a video game, just staring at that line and keeping it on the corner of my windscreen. And we went through the overpass. It's a beautiful overpass right by where we got married, by the way. And the view from there, which of course is gorgeous. And I was like, well, I hope I don't make the wrong turn as we approach the overlook. And we didn't, and we survived. So
I am so happy you're here to tell the tale.
Exactly. A couple of things on the show I wanted to touch base on. First of all, didn't bring this up the last time recorded, but a bunch of people reached out to us when we were saying, is this Golden Girls? I think we might have even discussed this already, but not on mic. Was she watching it? Is it syndicated or was it a box set? And a bunch of people emailed us and reached out. And there's a box of Golden Girls DVDs on her coffee table. So I'm like, aha, there it is. So proof we missed it.
Eagle-eyed listeners. I love it.
Yes, they're right on that. So I actually mentioned that to a few people going, that is oftentimes the only time we hear from our listeners is if we overlook something on the show. They're always very helpful in letting us know. A couple other Easter eggs too. In the episode where they were rebuilding Carol's house, when she said, I don't want to talk to any politicians, that was indeed the current mayor of Albuquerque there.
I read that as well. Isn't that cool?
It was very cool. And another Easter egg, this is much more inside baseball for people who are fans of the Vince Gilligan universe. The EMT who saves Zosha's life and gives Carol her at the hospital, explains her condition the next day. This is, I think, one of the last people who speaks to her before she gets the cold shoulder from the entire community out there, is actually the EMT, the on-set EMT who saved Bob Odenkirk's life on the set of Better Call Saul.
No way. That's amazing.
Yeah. And one more Easter egg from Better Call Saul, the recording, you may have picked up on this, Sona, the recording that hilariously always plays in full every single time she has to leave a voicemail, is actually played by Patrick Fabian, who played Howard on Better Call Saul. Yeah. So
I started thinking in this episode she should leave a voicemail saying, "Can you give me a shortcut key to skip this voicemail?"
But we would miss out. This is like one of those jokes that at first, when we had to hear it every single time, and she would pick up the phone like 2 or 3 times in a row. It actually was a little grating for me, but it's like one of those jokes that stops being funny and then becomes funny again. Seeing
Yeah.
Rhea Seahorn have to wait impatiently every time for the message is really great, because it just letting her have yet another aspect to her performance is always a pleasure.
Yeah, it also might be my personal pet peeve for those messages, especially when I don't know if this happens to you, when you call the doctor's office, for some reason it's always listen closely because these options have changed. They
Yes.
haven't changed. You just don't want me skipping them.
My wife uses her voicemail, oftentimes has to use her voicemail. They think this is a whole other conversation, that I think it's a terrible idea, but she sometimes gives, I think you can have a virtual phone number. And this is something I've talked to her office manager about, but regardless, that she sometimes gives out her personal
Yeah,
voicemail or your phone number.
yeah.
So whenever I have to leave her a voicemail, which is rare, I usually just text, but when I do actually have to leave a voicemail, her long message where she's, well, if this is related to work, then please contact this person or play this or go to this menu and push this button. And I'm like, oh my God, I just want to say, I'm at the supermarket. What else do we need? But it's usually a text anyway. So another bit of news, something that I speculated on a couple of weeks ago, was that Netflix was going to win the Warner Brothers deal. And they
Yeah,
announced today that indeed that is
yeah.
exactly what happened. So I had a conversation with one of the listeners via email, so it's not really a conversation, but communication about, I was hoping it would go to Netflix, mostly because I don't like this whole Paramount takeover where they were buying everything and they would also buy Max and Warner Brothers. But they made a really good point, which is Netflix is so anti theatrical release that, for example, the new Knives Out film has been out in theaters and is getting a
Yes.
very limited release. They are going to do a special fan event for the last episode of Stranger Things and in movie theaters. And all the screenings, I just out of curiosity, I wasn't planning to go because I figured it's all going to be a bunch of 12-year-olds, but I was curious to see how it's doing. And they're all sold out. And I'm like, man,
Mhm.
these people are just leaving money on the table. They put that K-pop movie out. We've discussed that recently in movie theaters. And the streaming that week of the film on Netflix went up. So I'm like, I don't think you are luring people away from their home screens
Yeah,
if
yeah.
they want to see something in the theater. This is just money they're leaving on a table. Anyway, this emailer mentioned that this will be terrible because Netflix is going to ruin Warner Brothers, and Warner Brothers loves theatrical. They had an incredible year this year. Everything they put out practically has been a huge hit in theaters. Sinners, just to name one, but like the Final Destination movie as well. And The Weapons was a huge hit in theaters. So they've had these huge films on HBO that have huge runs in theaters ahead of time. And it's been a real success. And I was like, well, this is good. Maybe there'll be a transition. Maybe they'll help Netflix get a curated theatrical event. And this person was much more cynical about it, being like, no, they'll just consume all of the best of HBO and then flatten it all onto Netflix, which is HBO's brand and Netflix brand, very different. Like we cover something on Netflix, we've discussed it
Mm.
here, where you can like, if you stop watching a Netflix show and come back to it 2 or 3 weeks later, they pretty much in the course of the next episode tell you everything you missed
Right.
previously.
Mhm.
And HBO seems to be like, you think about a show like Task or something, it's something to engage with
Take it
more
seriously.
deeply and to has more emotional stakes. The whole idea of something like Task versus something like Stranger Things, which is fun, obviously you can watch it in a very cursory way, is so different. So I do hope that this allows Netflix to be both things. That's my hope, but we'll see. I guess we'll have to wait and see. Do you have any opinion on it in general?
No,
One
no.
less subscription to buy, that's a good thing.
Yeah, I was about to say my only opinion is that, and I've declared it before, this whole streaming service situation has gone completely off the rails. And at this point, I just want a cable box back where
Yep.
I can buy a package that includes everything and I am done and I never have to think about it again.
That's happening with these bundles, right? Like during Black Friday, I did re up my HBO Max for $2.99 a month if I paid for the entire year. A true bargain. Although now I'm thinking if it gets folded into Netflix, does the deal go out the window because I'm already paying for Netflix? Or I'm not sure how that's going to work. I guess we'll figure it out over the course of the year. But yeah, you are seeing that more and more. When I was looking at that option, you have there's a Hulu bundle with Apple, or
I
I'm sorry,
know, but then you get
with,
into, oh, I'm already paying for this one. So
yeah,
now I've got to
yeah,
disconnect this one and sign up for this
yeah,
one. And
yeah,
it's just too much. And this deal only lasts for this amount of time. So now I
right.
have to remember to check back. I
Yeah.
don't care for it.
Yeah, it's true. It's very irritating. But at the same time, I just got rid of my cable, by the way, because the bill has become so crazy, and I had only
Yeah.
basic cable, and the cost was just astronomical. With the amount of money, I went to internet only, and with the amount of money I saved, I literally could pay for every possible subscription
Yeah.
with
Fair.
with the difference on the it literally is a $300 difference on the bill. So, like I said, with $300 a month, I can pay for every single possible subscription. So I'll figure that out.
Yes. I mean,
I'll to save
I
the money.
feel also like inevitably, even though we have so many subscriptions, especially between the two of us, even though maybe we're not supposed to talk about that, but inevitably something comes out and I think, okay, I'd like to watch that. And it's on one of the, I
Yeah,
don't know, 3 streaming services that we don't have
yeah,
between
yeah,
us.
yeah. That Peacock thing happened for
Hey, the
sure.
Peacock thing. Yes.
I sent you that Black Friday deal, by the way.
I
Peacock had
know, but now it's
$19
like a
for the
matter
year.
of principle. Come on.
But here's the thing: I literally was thinking about getting the Peacock deal, and then I would just share my credentials with you so you could actually log in. But I got to tell you, I looked at what's upcoming on Peacock, and there's so much stuff coming out, Sona, that next year it's incredible. I'll just introduce this now because we definitely will be discussing this. That through the rest of December, of course, we're going to finish Pluribus, which wraps up the day after Christmas. Unless they get an early episode, hopefully they'll drop it before Christmas. So they did. I'm
Mm-hmm.
hoping like they did before Thanksgiving. That would make it more convenient for us to record for sure. So that would be nice to see happen. But we'll be discussing that. And then in the first 2 weeks of January, we have The Pit, which I definitely will be covering, probably with my wife. And it was my favorite show of last
Mm-hmm.
year. So I'll definitely be talking about The Pit. The same day that The Pit comes out, they have the new season of The Night Agent, The Night Manager, which I know you were a big fan of.
I
They've shot
was.
They've shot 2 seasons of this after a 10-year break between seasons. We'll have 2 seasons of this show coming out. It's moved to Amazon Prime from AMC, and that'll be starting the same week. And also the new season of Industry that Darren and I will be covering here on the show. There's a new Game of Thrones season that I probably will watch and discuss here. I don't think I'm going to cover it week to week, but probably just bring it up here and there. Same week it premieres. Oh, and Hijack, which was a huge, incredible fun for
Mm-hmm.
us. Season 2 of Hijack on Apple is coming out. And there's something else that I'm forgetting about too. And it's all on the same week. And these are shows that are going to go week to week. I'm like, how are we going to cover 6 shows at the same time? Save something for later in the year, for God's sakes. But I assume that is because there is like a lot of stuff that is packed in there for later in the year. Oh, by the way, Your Friends and Neighbors has just
I
announced that
was
it's
about to
coming back
mention that.
in
Yep.
April. Yeah, so that definitely looking forward to that. So we'll probably go from Hijack or some combination of the shows I just mentioned, and then we'll transition into Your Friends and Neighbors. So yeah, so a ton of things to watch next year. Oh, but anyway, all this is going back to Peacock. I'm like, am I going to pay for Peacock this year? There's hardly anything. They have 2 shows that maybe I'm interested in watching next year. I'm like, I don't know if it's really worth it. Even at $19, is it worth it? Unless I love The Office reruns, I don't know what else I'm really going to watch on there. One last thing to mention, by the way, is premiering today. I still have not seen this. This has been playing in theaters, but is now available on Netflix and just was one of the nominees from the National Board of Review, which is usually a pretty good indicator of what gets nominated for Best Picture. Jay Kelly, the new Noah Baumbach movie, is with George Clooney and
Yes.
Adam Sandler. A lot of people are saying
Mm-hmm.
Sandler's going to get an Academy Award nomination for this. Is premiering on Netflix today. So anybody who has Netflix, which is I think the vast majority of our audience, do check it out. I'll be checking it out sometime this weekend, and then Darren and I will be discussing it in our next conversation. And Sona, if you check it out, we can discuss it as well.
Yeah, my husband was mentioning wanting to watch that. So I may do that. And also, I don't know if this is the best time to mention it, but I did finally finish The Beast in Me as
Oh,
well. Speaking of
okay.
Netflix things.
Oh, great. Then I will, you know what? Let's save that for the end of our conversation. I have not finished it, but very
Okay.
curious to get your opinion on it. I quit. I tried to watch episode 3 and I literally could not finish it. I tried it like 2 or 3 times and it wasn't terrible. I just was not engaging with it. And I have so many other things at end of year that I'm trying to watch. I just never went back to it. So maybe you can tell me what you think of it. And so we'll save
Yeah,
it
I
for
loved
the
it,
end of the
actually.
conversation.
I
Oh,
loved
great.
it.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. So maybe if I'm stuck in episode 3, maybe you can make the pitch for me to turn to bend.
Yeah, I
And
don't
then,
think you will necessarily love it. This
oh,
was a
okay.
series. I'm getting ahead of ourselves now, but it was almost designed like someone ticked off a punch list of all the things that would
Yes.
make me watch a show. So, and I don't think our punch lists are the same in that regard.
Right.
So,
All right, great. I actually very curious to get your opinion on those. And one last thing to bring it up before we start breaking down the episode, which is Sona. Last week, since we didn't discuss anything, did you have a theory for what was under the tarp?
it was obviously people.
I actually did not think it was people. I thought they were eating the dogs, by the way. That was my theory. The reason I thought by that, by the way, was because I'm like, where are all the dogs in this show? And then there was all this dog imagery, these dogs hunting in packs last week and such.
Mhm, the
And I'm like, oh,
coyotes.
they're
Mm.
hunting in packs. Maybe there's something in the dogs that helps. I thought this was like, I was overthinking it, that this was some kind of, this is where the mind glue comes from. But then as soon as I said this on the podcast, by the way, I started second guessing myself because I'm like, no, because they're instantly have mind glue. It's not like they're drinking this protein from the dog
Right.
brains that are giving them this mind glue. But I was like, and I did actually play. But the one thing that I did contemplate, because I did think the obvious choice would be that it would be people under there. I was pretty certain, and that's what we get this week. I was pretty certain that if indeed that was the case, that it would be something innocuous like this, like that the whole point of this show in general is to almost set up a cliffhanger so that your expectations of what this science fiction show is going to be are constantly subverted, right? It's even in the very first episode where you watched it and you're like, oh man, it's going to be a zombie show. And it's nope, that's not the kind of zombie show it is, right? And then
Thankfully.
it's constantly like setting you up for one thing and then not giving you what you want, which is what Gilligan does also. Like when you think about
Yeah.
what everyone thought a sequel or prequel, I should say, to Breaking Bad would be. And it's not
Yes.
the show we got at all, right? So,
Well, I did immediately think it was people. And then what I thought about was, well, we know Carol, just by getting upset, killed 11 million people.
yes. Mhm.
So I guess this is something to do with all those bodies. On the one hand, it is very appalling. But on the other hand, how bad is it really when you have all these dead bodies around anyway? I don't know. Is it maybe a different version of the plane crash in the Alps? I don't know.
Well, yeah, that's exactly correct. But also, speaking of plane crashes in the Alps, remember that when they had that increased or accelerated rollout, that hundreds of millions of people died, hundreds
Yeah.
of millions. So
Yeah.
that is lots of calories.
Yeah. And I think they explore that well in this episode of, yes, viscerally, it's very upsetting. But then when you really think about it, it's not the worst thing that could happen.
Speaking of speculation, by the way, we had a listener on YouTube who was like, you know what's under the tarp? You ask where are the dogs. I ask where are the babies? I'm like, oh
Oh,
no, they're eating
shoot.
babies. I guess some of those are babies, probably, unfortunately. But yes, not quite as dark as all that. So the episode kicks off. We pick up immediately from last week. Carol's in full freak out mode here. I like how the show goes into found footage where she got the camera. She has a presentational style. It's like she's been studying YouTube videos or something because she's not just, I
Yeah.
got something to tell you. Look at this. She's, oh, what do we have here? We have some food. And what's this? This
Yeah.
isn't a turkey. This is someone's head.
No,
And it's
absolutely. I was thinking about, did she have a tripod with her? How is that? Where did she set up that camera? There is a lot of interesting stuff going on with the cinematography of this video.
Yeah, I'm sure some of that. Well, you could have put the camera down at that moment because it does look pretty realistic. Although it's probably not. Obviously, these are professional filmmakers, so they're going to give you. It's like a found footage movie, a horror movie, where it's shaky cam, so you know that's a camera.
Yeah.
But that's not how it's really shaky.
Yeah.
When you look at TikToks and stuff, like people are terrible at
Yeah.
recording video, right? What did you think about this? So, Carol obviously runs back home,
Well, I want
and
to wait before
yeah,
she runs back home.
sure,
I will say, as much as I was sure there were bodies under the tarp, in my head, for some reason, it was just going to be entire bodies just piled up
yeah.
for some reason. I do think they did. This was very disturbing, the way the head was saran wrapped and stuff.
Yeah, they've separated
So,
out all the parts, and
yeah,
then
so
yeah,
that was, even with my expectation that it would be bodies, it was more upsetting than I expected it to be, the presentation of it.
yeah. This is they're very methodical, right? So I assume they're doing this with all the food, by the way. So
Right.
you can imagine that they have one of the things we see here is like piles and piles of watermelons. So you can imagine all those
Yeah.
watermelons are going to rot. So they need to freeze them so they can transport them, turn them into juice or whatever they're going to do with it. And John Cena gives us a lot of breakdown of a lot more details
Yeah.
about this later on. But I think they're doing the same thing with the body parts, right? If you like separate, chop them all up into, and then store them that way, it's probably easier to refrigerate them because they're smaller. This is like a lot of details I didn't want to think about, but and also for transportation purposes, etc. But it is, yeah, it's pretty grim stuff, and especially when you consider that they have worldwide hundreds of millions of bodies, but of course they're not going to eat them all now, so they need to store them for easy consumption later on.
Yeah, and all of this tying back to that first scene with Zosha, right? Where I thought they were just taking away the bodies because that's what you do with dead bodies.
Right.
Maybe they already had a system in place for storing them. So that's why the truck pulls up and they pile them in.
Yeah, they might have figured this out very quickly.
Yeah.
And then we see her freak out. She goes back home. She makes another video, but then she's probably in the back of her mind, I assume at this moment, thinking, they're not actually distributing these videos. I need to make a personal delivery. But the most interesting aspect of this whole scene, by the way, Sona, is as she leaves and then comes back in to vacuum up the spilled powder. Do you think it's because she now knows that's like micronized body parts? Or is it just that she's like OCD? Because my wife, by the way, she definitely would be like, I have to go vacuum up the carpet. Even if I'm the last person on earth, I still have to go do that.
I think it was the former of your two suggestions that now it's so disturbing knowing what that was that she can't just
She
leave
couldn't
it
just leave it
scattered on
there.
her floor.
Yeah.
That's my guess. We haven't seen previous
Her OCD,
type
right?
traits
Yeah.
for
Well, the one,
not trying to make light of OCD. She doesn't
yeah.
seem like a neat freak type person. She doesn't seem sloppy either, but
Well, she does walk around with a blood on her shirt for like more than a day. So, but then she's traumatized by the
yeah,
situation.
a lot going on at the moment. Yeah.
So maybe not the case, but I did think not so much that she legitimately has OCD, but what I did think it might indicate is that she still is committed to this. Like things are going to go back to the way they were, right? And I think that is something that we've seen in her personality, that she cannot accept the fact that things are changing.
Yes.
And in that way, that does feel like I have to wash all the dishes before I go. And it's really, you can live in any house in Albuquerque, by the way.
I am living in a normal civilized world, and you should see the conditions of my apartment. So,
Yeah, if you started washing the dishes, that would be the scary part.
yeah.
That's when
That's
I
actually
know
the
that
only
the
thing I
mind
keep
virus is
on
taking off.
top of because the concern for pests or
Yes,
whatever,
of
but
course.
I let a lot of things go, let's just say.
Okay, then this very entertaining, very protracted game of poker. I actually want to spend a lot of time on this because
This is wild.
it is so entertaining. It's so lavish. Everybody is playing a different part. So I do almost think in my head, like, is he telling them all, no, you act like this, you act like this? Or has he done this so many times, they've acclimated to it? Or has he told them like, hey, all improvise, and they're actually really good at improvising? They should be able to, right? There are definitely
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was wondering if it was maybe a scene from a movie
Yeah.
that I was not familiar with, especially with the guy with the eye patch.
Yeah. It's very James Bond coded. I
Yeah.
don't remember a James Bond movie where this plays out. There is a terrible, even more ridiculous poker hand that's played in Casino Royale, which is a great scene, although the poker makes no sense at all there. And it's equally ridiculous here that, I mean, if he's going to script this, because of course, everybody who's playing cards knows what the hands are because they can all see each other's hands. So this is all a big performance. But the fact that they have also given him the royal flush, but
Hmm.
this is why I want to spend some time on this. It simultaneously shows you the fantasy of, man, I can be James Bond in this world, but then how there are no stakes. Like, even if
Yeah.
the guy has a straight flush, you're going to get the royal flush. Like, it is so like a world without any stakes, basically.
Yeah. It's just playing pretend.
Right.
It actually reminded me, this is maybe a little bit of an obscure reference, but something about the feel of all of it reminded me of Don't Worry, Darling,
Oh, yeah. Good point. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
where they've created this whole other reality that at least some of those people have all decided to live in.
Right. But at least there you are performing for somebody. That's the irony of that movie, which I don't think it's not perfect, but I actually think it's better than the terrible reputation it has, because
Mm.
there is foundationally something interesting where, and I think we see it here as well. So it's not a bad correlation at all, that there is a burden on the person who is trying to perpetrate the fantasy. That
Hmm.
in Don't Worry, Darling, these men, minor spoiler for Don't Worry, Darling, but these men who are trying to maintain this alternate world they live in, the onus is on them to keep the fantasy going. And I actually thought about that, not in context of that movie, but just in general. That's the same situation here. This guy has this fantasy world that he's living in, but he has to construct the entire fantasy world. How exhausting is it
Yeah.
to, if someone constructs a fantasy world for you and then you can enter it, then like the movie The Game, but a pleasurable version of it, right? That could
Such
be
a
a lot
great
of fun,
movie.
right? Like you go to Disneyland and all these people are performing for you and making these experiences for you, but they're surprises to you. But for you to have to tell everybody act like this now, like that robs it of any pleasure.
Yeah,
For
he
me
gets
anyway.
mad at the guy for falling out of character at the
Yes,
end for
very
a
funny.
second.
The guy starts applauding.
Yeah.
I love that. He
Yeah.
forgot to stay in character.
And I think that's one of the reasons that I thought maybe this is a scene from a movie, because then at least some of the work would be done for you,
Right,
because it
right.
would be in that collective consciousness of
Yeah,
what that scene in the movie is, and everybody could decide what part they're going to play. But yeah, if this is really from scratch, that seems exhausting.
yeah, exactly. Oh, and minimally, that's the other thing I was thinking. I guess there's a version of this that I could get behind where you tell them that you guys have to construct a story for me,
Yeah.
and there has to be actual stakes. It's funny because Darren and I have been watching The Watchmen, rewatching The
Mhm.
Watchmen from HBO from 6 years ago, in connection with Welcome to Derry, because it's also on HBO and has some of the creative team behind it, and also like a variation of an existing work that isn't like canonical to the original work. So we thought it was like a good corollary to explore. And the funniest thing about it is that it ends up connecting a lot to Pluribus more than it does to that,
Mhm.
because there's a character, I know you haven't watched the show, but there's a character who lives in this fantasy world where everybody there is just there to serve him. And he needs to create an antagonist for himself who really is just another one of his servants. But his job is to be his antagonist, right? So that's more of something I could get behind, because then there would be actual stakes. Because if I tell this guy to take his role really seriously, there could be some consequences for me. But if I have to sit down there and be like, you guys act this way and then you act this way, it's like making a movie, by the way, which I guess you can live in it for the moment. But once again, it's a huge production. I love the idea that it expresses just how exhausting the amount of overhead for this is. And maybe that's also a metaphor for Vegas, which is all made up as well. So maybe a perfect place for this to happen. But the moment he leaves the room, they all take off their jewelry and
Mhm.
start
Mhm.
picking up and cleaning up after themselves. So what they really wanted to be doing was cleaning up the glass off the floor. And
Yeah.
they've just been performing this the whole entire time. Anyway, I just thought this was really fascinating because it just shows you the lie of the fantasy of it. But also it shows you that they, in a way, need him, because they have no purpose. They're not, what is their purpose without having this play act to perform?
Yeah.
So anyway, all of this is really interesting to me. It also made me think about something else, made me think about Bluey, believe it or not, but more so the fact that this whole play acting thing, and we see it in the show Bluey, the animated show, but it's something my daughter does all the time. When I watch Bluey, I always think about this, especially when she was younger, but she still does it now. When she has some of her friends over, they'll play school and they'll play out their specific teachers, like the specific teachers they have in
Mhm.
class. And then they'll be like, no, don't do it that way. Do it this way. Because in a way,
Mhm.
it's like they're practicing the experience of whatever, like the being yelled at by this teacher. If they have a problematic relationship with that particular teacher, it's like a way for them to play that out. And that's again made me think about Bluey, because there's specific episodes of Bluey where they're play acting, but it's no, you're doing it wrong. So there's a
Mhm.
very
Mhm.
specific version of the play acting that I'm expecting, which is what we see here. But again, I wonder about, at least there, these didn't know kids in, with my actual daughter and with the Bluey show, they're actually trying to work something out, right? And
Yes.
again, here it's like there's no stakes. These others don't have an agenda, and he does have an agenda to have a good time. But then, like I said, if I write the whole entire script and tell you exactly how to perform it, I can't also be caught up in it. It's like making a movie, right? It's like if I am the director and the writer, and I'm telling everybody exactly where to stand, then I can make that movie. But who's my audience? I don't have an audience, right? So it's like there's no pleasure in it anymore. So all that is to say that he seems to be in denial a little bit, at least a little bit, of the very limited runway he has for the amount of pleasure he's going to get for this type of lifestyle.
I think he's already seeing that, though. At least from the subsequent events of the episode, it seems like he's done a lot more thinking about this situation than we would have been led to believe based on our initial
Yes, absolutely. Hmm.
meeting with him.
And that's the other thing that's interesting about it. And that's why I was like hung up on this scene, that there are plenty of people out there who find pleasure and satisfaction in providing service. And I actually think that in its own way, he is in a relationship with this other consciousness, because if that consciousness, and again, this is where the onus is on him to create this experience, because if the consciousness doesn't like to play act, but does like to provide service for somebody else, then the fact that he's happy with their performance or whatever is a form of pleasure that this thing, this unified entity, can still experience. So, and like you said, he has thought about this. I'm going to jump ahead to this, but we'll discuss it even in more detail when it comes around in the plot. But there's a conversation he has later on when Carol visits, that he's on the phone with them and I miss you. And they're saying, like, when can we see you again? And
Mhm,
even if you
mhm.
consider that a performance, he's like saying to them, like, oh, Carol's very lonely. You should
Yeah.
try to reach out to her again. So that is a very intimate conversation to be having with you.
Yes.
If you consider, like, she thinks he's using them as like props for
Right.
pleasure, but that's not the communication he has with them at all. So yeah, like you said, I think he's had a more complex relationship with them than we initially expected. He also has a lot of empathy for Carol, but doesn't want her to hang out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't hang around, please,
You're a pariah right now.
to say the least. One last thing I have to bring up here, especially to the context of like how she interrupts one of his sexual experiences in the hot tub. It did, once again, this ties into all of this, the whole how does this mind thing work? And maybe they've worked this all out. I hope so, because I have so many questions. But even sex, right? On the one hand, it doesn't seem, they obviously can have sex. They're having sex with him. So it exists, but I are like on their own, left to their own devices, are they having sex with each other? Because they can still experience pleasure, right? And not only that, like just to procreate, or do they want to procreate?
Yeah, I'm not sure
Yeah,
they want to procreate.
right. And maybe once again, if they're purely utilitarian, then they might be like, well, we don't have enough food for these people. So even if they want to have sex, they're like, well, we shouldn't, because we don't want to make more. But that also speaks to the flaw in this programming. Like, what is the end game here for this type of programming if you basically will exterminate your species? Unless that's the goal.
Yeah. Well, they're going to run out of food. So
Right.
it might not be a concern for them that they're running out of food. I don't
Well,
know.
it should be. I have a whole bunch of
I mean, they
questions.
have enough to go 10 years.
Right.
People would live more than 10 years even if you don't procreate. So, yeah, still an issue.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Any new people would be a problem unless you need labor. But then once again, it all comes down to the question of how long would that play out. Anyway, yeah, I have some speculation on what the purpose of all this might be, and I'll save it for the end, but maybe we can talk about it more there. And of course, Carol comes and ruins the fun as usual. That's what she does. I love that all the signage in Las Vegas. Also very impressive, the fact that they're like able to shut down the strip here to make the movie, this series. The signage is all, hey, welcome, Carol. Welcome to Vegas.
Yeah.
And then when she gets inside the casino, the actual which elevator to take and what floor to go to. Oh, and by the way, if you think about the lighting in Albuquerque is wasteful for Carol's neighborhood or the whole entire town to be lit up, think about the amount of waste in keeping
Seriously.
all of Vegas running. And of course, Carol meets Mr. Diabate is his name. The actor, by the way, I have to bring up his name, Samba Shoot, who is terrific in this role, by the way. Terrific.
Agree.
And I love this whole reveal. She's ready to drop first of all, I like how she keeps getting digressed. She's, man, do I have news for you? She thinks she has this huge piece of information. And of course, he already knows it. But even before there, I like how things just start to drop in his conversation. First of all, he says, oh, is this another one of your videos? And she's like, oh, you were getting my videos?
She can't imagine that people are getting these videos and not reaching out to her.
No one's,
The reality, it reminded me of this Mindy Kaling book from a while ago that's called Is Everyone Hanging Out Without Me?
That's exactly what's happening here.
Yeah, everyone is hanging out without you, Carol.
And I love his reaction to this as she's like, where's the HDMI? I got to figure this out. And is this about eating people?
Yes.
It is troubling.
Old news.
It is troubling. I like when she goes, when did you find this out? And he goes, well, I was hanging out with John Cena. And I was like, hey, why do you guys always drink milk all the time? And they just explained it to him. Meanwhile, she thinks that she's cracked some code here.
You know, John Cena's career is so bizarre to me because the crossover between my life and John Cena's demographic, I think, is very slim. Yet I consume a surprising amount of media where John Cena randomly shows up, I feel.
He's an interesting guy. He plays classical piano. He has a Middle Eastern wife. He's on Peacemaker, the TV series, which is
I did not know that.
Interesting second season this year. Yeah, he's everywhere, really everywhere.
He really is. Good for him.
Yeah, good for him. I like him too.
Love this video too. The video was great.
Yeah, fantastic. We learned a bunch of things here, right? So I like the fact that they can't harm any living thing. They can't even pick the fruit off the branches. Come on. This is
this is interesting to me because I had previously said, oh, this philosophy sounds a lot like Jainism.
Yes.
And Jainism does have that philosophy. You can't harm any living thing. But I think, and I'm afraid I'm going to be misstating it because I am not well schooled in this, but fruits and things that can grow back, essentially, it's fine. There is a thing about root vegetables because that I've heard differing explanations for why Jains might not eat root vegetables. And one is that that's the entire plant.
That's the root.
Right? A carrot is that's it. And the other being something involving cleanliness because
it's in the dirt.
It's coming out of the dirt. Yes. And then also an idea of insects are feeding off of that. So that's their source of nutrition. I'm not sure which is really the most accurate representation of the principle, but I do know that Jains believe in never doing any violence and they will eat an apple.
Right. That's what's surprising about it for me as well. The purpose of the apple is to fall off the tree and be eaten. So I can't imagine that picking the apple, if it's ready to drop anyway, because like they'll eat it obviously if gladly, according to John Cena. If the windfall, the is that what they call it, windfall of the harvest, if when the wind knocks the trees off, can't you just shake the trees until the apples fall off? I don't. Is that considered harmful? This
Bring
seems
in a
very
wind
extreme.
machine.
I actually put down Jainism as I'm like, this is a very extreme version of Jainism.
Yeah.
We also find that domesticated animals do still exist, by the way. They mention it here. I guess those animals will die and procreate. And I guess they could be a food source if you wait until they die. But even then, I think that's a problem because animals that like die in nature will be consumed by other animals, right? So you can't really go in there and start to fight off a hyena to get your hands on the dead animal. Right? So yeah, it's complicated, man. These rules are a little extreme. And yeah, and by the way, we find out here that they've been meeting, of course, behind Carol's back.
It is hurtful. They've been having weekly Zooms and not including her.
Yes. I love how analog she is, that we meet twice a week and she's like, wow, that's a lot of mileage. And he's like,
Yeah.
mostly on Zoom. And she's, oh yeah, of course. She immediately thinks they're jumping on planes together again. It's just, that's you, Carol. That's your thinking about meeting. Not most people just meet on Zoom. I also like the fact that this is addressed to, oh yeah, so first of all, the abbreviation for this is HDP. And John Cena's reaction to all of this is fantastic, where he's just, would we choose to? No. What is it else did he say? He says that most cultures historically look down on anthropophagia. Oh man, how do you pronounce this? Anthropophagy? Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, I wanted to look up that word and I didn't get a chance to. I thought it was just cannibalism, but
yes.
I guess
mean,
maybe because the body's dead.
term.
I don't know.
Good point. Yes, possible. I think it would be the same either way, the terminology.
Still cannibalism, yeah.
And Carol, you will never have to consume this product. You will have all the best produce always.
Don't you worry your little head about this. No one's going to force you to eat people.
Yeah. I love that Mr. Diabate also says that John Cena was very convincing. He's even more convincing in French. Oh, I also love a little lawyer joke in here where she was like, I thought they said they were all vegetarian. And he goes, I thought about that too, but they actually said they would prefer to be vegetarian. And she says, I guess all the lawyers in the world survived. Very specific in the language there. And then, of course, that's when the other shoe drops, like I mentioned before, that I like this echo back to the very first episode of the show where he says, we were very disturbed. And she goes, who is us? Who is we? And that reminds me of back in the first episode of the show. She says, who is we? And they're like, we is us. Now we have the opposite. Who is us? And us, of course, is the other 12 or 11 of the 12 remaining people. I also like the fact that their conversation, when she's, what did you guys talk about? She's so shocked by this because, of course, she's thinking they're talking about how do we change everything back to the way it was? And they're like, how do we save them from starving? That's what they were talking about. And then, of course, this is very specific here as well. They're like, well, we were thinking about building robotic harvesters. However, they would have to build the robotic harvesters and program them. And if that happened, then they're now doing harm to those plants. So I guess it breaks their prerogative, their directive.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's workarounds for this, by the way. I do, by the way, that Carol brings up the fact that, why didn't you invite me? I come up with robot shit all the time. She's a writer.
Yeah, she's thinking, I've got a pirate ship sailing on purple sand.
Exactly.
This is nothing for me.
She can come up with stuff. Do you have any alternate theories? One of I immediately thought about some kind of robotic harvesters, and then you could have them build the machines. I think this is enough of a loophole here. Speaking of surviving lawyers here, that you can make them build the machines, and then I could program them, right? And then therefore you're not responsible for what the machines do. And I just have to learn how to code, or they just have to teach me how to code, and then I write the program, right?
You think that makes you not responsible?
Like I said, I think that if you are enough of a lawyer, you can make an argument there, or you can make some kind of argument that, hey, if you guys all die off, then I'll be alone, and that's bad for me. Or if they're trying to think about it, like they try to spread this all over the world, to spread this kumbaya. I guess there was their version of rescuing as many lives as possible. You can't convert everybody and then kill off the entire species, what was the point of infecting them in the first place, right? So I think that there's got to be a loophole here in their logic.
I did not have any ideas about how to fix it because I was too busy thinking how silly it was. But I do appreciate the payoff of this from that original lunch where they're talking about how they can't do violence, they don't eat animals, and Mr. Diabate
Yeah.
asks,
Mm-hmm.
"Oh, well, if I kill the animal, could you prepare it for us?" And so I do the through line of that, and this being the result of, so we're eating dead bodies.
Right. So there you go. I mean, I do that as well. There's a logical conclusion there that if they can't do any of those things, although, I mean, it is extreme that you can't even pick plants, because I think
I
that
think it's bananas.
if they
Speaking of
could
fruits.
pick the plants and then, of course, plant them, that doesn't do any harm, and then harvest them, then I think they would be okay. So it's quite a
Yeah.
loophole here. But then, of course, then if they can't, then all your labor can't do the labor required to feed itself. So that's a big problem. And then that night, sadly, Carol goes, where's the closest bathroom? She goes in there just to cry. An outsider, again, it's really incredible, right? So she's an outsider. She's a survivor of this whole entire thing. She's been an outsider her whole entire life, probably had very few people she lets into her inner circle. And then she gets alienated from everybody because she's the only one on the outside. Then the survivors don't see things the way she does. And then she gets very funny, by the way, the metaphor last week that the entire population breaks up with her at the same time. We need some distance, Carol. I'm sorry. Everybody breaks up with her. I like the visual, by the way, last week of all the cars leaving town in both directions, just trying to get away from her as much as possible. And now, yeah, they took a vote. They don't want to see her. She's not constructive. She won't help in their conversations.
It
They've
was not
decided
unanimous.
it was not unanimous, true, at least. And then, yeah, and then that night she falls asleep on one of his couches and he puts a blanket on her, which was very touching to me, by the way, because I thought to myself, this poor woman, like just this little act of kindness of someone putting a blanket on her, she has nobody in the world to do that for her. It's like
Right.
such a small little thing, but there's nobody for her at all in the world. It's really sad.
This is the first time she's interacted with another human being in several days, I think, at this point.
Yeah, exactly. True. She wakes up the next morning. Mr. Diabate's made some breakfast, looks delicious. What did you think of her sandwich here? Mr. Diabate liked it too.
It's like she was making an avocado toast, right?
Yeah. And then she puts the egg on it as well and the
Yeah,
bacon. So it's
and
like
the
kind of a.
bacon.
Mhm.
So I loved his modeling of that.
Yes.
It was very cute. And I
Yeah.
think the development of that character in this episode is really interesting because I think we all could have guessed that he was not as shallow as
Right.
he seemed the first time we met him, but I think he's really shown himself to be a much more thoughtful person than I would have expected.
For sure. I think, yeah, on the surface, we see her, I'm sorry, we see him the way she sees him, as in he's just this playboy and he's just not dealing with the reality of this. But then, like you said, when he's on his own, you see that he probably is thinking about these things. He is trying to rescue these people, and not just for his own pleasure, so that they're around, but he's trying to rescue them. And he communicates with them and even makes a plea on Carol's part to them. It's like, obviously he's communicating with them so he has a full understanding that he's inside of the illusion and yet understands what this thing is. And I think that's a deeper understanding than she does.
Yeah, I agree. And I like what we see about her character as well, that because of how that first meeting went, she has developed this kind of arrogance that
Yes. Mm-hmm.
she's the only one questioning
Right.
anything, and
Mm-hmm.
she can't conceive that other people have learned information that she has not yet learned.
Exactly. And yeah, exactly. It comes back to that idea that, importantly, very importantly here, that first is the fact that she shows up there, not even again taking this information when she just finds the bodies and then confronting the others with it to hear what they have to say. she immediately goes in conspiracy mode. Aha, I got them. I knew I was going to find them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's immediately where she goes into. And then, like you said, goes and she's nobody's as perceptive as her
Mm-hmm.
to have seen these milk containers, which by the way, she didn't, like Mr. Diabate was saying, like, oh, hey, why are you guys drinking all that milk? Because he's interacting with them on their own terms. Hey, what are you eating? What do you guys eat? What are you guys doing? What does it feel like to be like you? These are all questions she does not ask because she does not care. She's like,
Mm-hmm.
when does everything go back to the way it was? Like, that's what she wants to know. And she does not have any interest in entertaining, keep things the way they are, or accepting at all that they are the way they are, which of course is very short-sighted of her, because maybe the solution for what she's trying to do could be like just having a conversation with them deeply would lead her to catch more bees with honey if she was just having that conversation and exploring what those options might be, rather than immediately being antagonistic and trying to find like a gotcha or a trick. They're like, they can't lie. Just ask them questions until they tell you what you want to hear. And she won't do that because she wants it to be on her terms. And specifically to that point, I like the fact that part of the reason she's not invited to those get-togethers was that they were offended that here they were, like the survivors on the earth were able to meet each other. And she's like, only the English speakers.
Yes.
As if only the conversation with her, like having these people talk to each other, and some of those people in that group would be able to, like Mr. Diabate could speak to people who speak French. And so there's these other opportunities. But no, it's not Carol's experience. I don't want to have anything to do with that. It's not important to me. It's only what information I'm going to get, which of course, again, it shows you how she has isolated herself her whole entire life. And we see, right? Like it's sad. Like she has been isolated for reasons she can't control, but it has made her this very cynical and selfish person, to be honest.
I think, in fairness to her, on the English speakers, although it was offensive, that was so early, it could be that she didn't trust the other people to translate properly for her.
Right.
Maybe. But I do think the topper on the whole thing is that part of what's driving her is this fear of they're going to make me like them. And then Mr. Diabate comes out with, oh, no, don't worry. They can't do that unless you give them permission, which is very recent news. He just learned it the other day or whatever. But still, I think there's a lot of news that just deflates everything that's been driving her in this whole scene.
Right. And I think that's very important, by the way, that it is exactly that she, like the show in general, has taken and even with interactions with our people who've emailed me about the show, they've had these theories about, well, there's got to be something nefarious because they killed all those people. And what's the loophole there? They have a bigger agenda. And the show has over and over again said, whatever your expectations are, that is not the agenda here. And it's bad enough, right? They're still going to die. It's still going to kill people off, but not for the reasons you think. And then, like you said, it's like this deflating of her expectations that something nefarious is going on, but they don't have any ill intent against her and she can't accept that. And then same thing with this now discovering that no, she's been terrified that, oh yeah, well, wait till you're starving too, because they force you to change. And they're like, they can't. So theoretically in this world, everything, so again, how she is being so obstinate about this, in this world, they are telling her collectively, we do not want to, we can change this. We don't want to. And she won't accept that from them. I'm going to change you whether you like it or not. And it's because it's me or you. And they're like, we'll never change you. We'll never change you. Yeah. And she still is, I'm still going to change it. I could be myself. You guys are going to wait on me hand and foot. You guys love doing that. It's what you want to be doing. Right. She's still not cool with it. Still not what she wants. So like you said, it's like dismantling all of the reasons she should be doing this for non-selfish reasons. And she's just, okay, all that stuff is gone. I still want it the way I want it. And that's it. Which is interesting that she could be the villain of this piece in the end. I don't think that's actually the direction the show is going to go in. But it could actually be that, like I made that joke earlier, but maybe not a joke, that she's going to force them to change back and they're going to come out of it and be like, hate her for it.
Yeah, this sucks.
We were so happy and you ruined it. You ruined it. But of course, now we know that's not, it's not, there's no, you have to pay the piper at some point. If you're going to all starve to death, you could be living in kumbaya, cloud, whatever, mind, heaven for a period of time, but eventually you're all going to die off. And a couple of things there, of course, I like when she's, well, the next thing I'm going to do is get a sweet nearby. And he's, oh, no, don't do that. And she's, I was just kidding. But of course, that's like a defense mechanism. Everything with the phone call, right? The discovery, like you said, about they have to use their stem cells and we have to get permission for that. And she calls the voicemail again and leaves the message. And they communicate with her instantly through the giant screen, which is hilarious. What do you call that? The signage outside of the casino.
The marquee, maybe.
Mm-hmm. And then she leaves in her police car, parked right in front of the casino. Of course, been sitting there the whole time. No one touched it. And of course, she's driving around this police car. And he's like, oh, this is what you're driving? And meanwhile, of course, he has like one Lamborghini per day.
With a personalized license plate for each.
Yeah, exactly. You can have anything you want. Why not?
Yeah.
And he does have this one last place. She made her appeal to him. Don't tell me that you think this is better than it was before. And he says to her that the world is trying as best as it can, even without her. And they miss her. Zosha misses you. There's a emotional plea there. And says that they just want you to have a change of heart before they come back. And her reaction is, F them. I don't want anything to do with them.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, already intriguing episode here, but I'm like, what's this last section of the episode here? What's going to happen next? She going to just drive back home? No, we rewind 3 days. It's only been 12 days, by the way. So interesting. It's had not even 2 weeks yet. So we have to cut her some slack that she's not quite accepting things in just 2 weeks. And we rewind 3 days and we see this really fascinating day with Manousos. He's gotten to the end of the spectrum of this shortwave radio.
Mm-hmm.
And then we see that I was like, oh, and then of course, conveniently, the very last frequency is the one where someone's talking or something. And well, maybe that would be logical. Maybe someone would automatically pick that one, just thinking, well, I'm not going to pick an arbitrary one. It's got to be on the either extreme. Who is going to actually go through all these things like he did? But actually, nope, there's nobody there. However, there is a broadcast, and it sounds like, I think I have to go back and rewatch episode 1, but it sounds like it might be part or the whole of the original broadcast from space.
Interesting.
There's a pattern to it that repeats. And I think that, like I said, I have to go back and listen. I didn't have a chance to do this before we talked, but I actually wanted to go and play the audio from episode 1 and compare the two. That's my guess, though, that this is definitely part of that broadcast. So that will be important because he'll be able to know what frequency to listen to it on and maybe do something with that information. None of them can transcribe that information, but I'm sure that they can request a translation or something possibly, and then maybe that'll be a clue as to where things go. And what happens here, he goes out again, knocks over the food that's been delivered, but notices Carol's first video arrives there and she listens to it. And this is really fascinating. Seeing him watch her, and it's like he is joining her cult. He's someone thinks like me.
Yes. And, ironically, someone who does not speak English.
Yes, but it's translated because she did request that. So you see the Spanish translation at the bottom of the screen. And they give it to him as a VHS conveniently. So I guess they did do that transfer. He finally leaves for the very first time, goes back to his house. He finds some leftovers and scarfs them down very pleasantly. I loved all the detail. I don't know if they shot this on location or not, but the detail of this location, his apartment, you see aspects of his character. He has his passport and his documents hiding on this lamp. So you see some aspect of his paranoia, perhaps. So it is a lot of detail in this, just entering his living space. It's pretty cool. What else does he pack up here? He packs a small bag. He has maps of Central America. I don't know why he has all those maps.
A lot of maps.
Central America is pretty compact. So I guess if you have to travel around for whatever reason.
Yeah, maybe you drive.
You have maps. He does. Curious, actually. You see,
no, I think it was South America, wasn't it? The maps.
It may have been. But he's
always in South America, right?
Paraguay. Yeah.
Yeah.
But of course, I'm thinking but then he's going to have to work his way through there and then go up through Mexico.
Yeah, that's a bizarre plan to drive all the way. But
I
I
did.
guess he doesn't see any other way. He doesn't realize he can just ask for a plane and it's going to be fine.
Well, I don't think he wants to. That's pretty clear as
Mm.
well. So I don't think he's trustworthy enough to know
Yeah.
that. And it's 5,300 miles, by the way, 5,300 miles.
Yeah. Paraguay, I'm looking at a map right now. It's in the middle of South America. It's
Yeah.
not even north.
At least once they get into North America, not North America, once they get into America, the United States, it's not a very long drive.
Yeah, that's fair.
Everything else is pretty
Yeah.
extreme.
Yeah.
I also assume that once he gets to Mexico, it won't be that hard of a drive because it's basically just like United States border. Just keep driving to the United States border, and then you'll probably start seeing signs for whether you're going towards San Diego or going towards Albuquerque, like some of these main cities. You'll start seeing signs as you get closer. But still, it's just that 5,300
Yes.
miles. He has got
Yeah.
like one container of gasoline. I don't think that's going to cut it.
The time, the distance, the car does not seem very sturdy. There's a lot happening.
The car is lovingly maintained, by the way, this convertible he has, but it doesn't run very well. It
Yeah.
stalls immediately. It could also be like one of those cars that you work on as a hobby, and maybe you don't drive it that much. So it doesn't really know how well it runs. And then there's this incredible moment here where he pulls out the car, it stalls. He can, of course, get it going by rolling it down the hill. Sona, he didn't have to put a pencil in the engine.
That is one of my fondest high school memories, honestly. I love it. I probably tell that story once a year to Joel, to my husband. Yeah.
You got to stick a pencil in there to keep open the choke. This one, he just rolls it downhill.
I'm happy you knew because there was no way I was going to figure out to put a pencil in there.
But yeah, he can roll it downhill. And I don't know if it's the battery problem or not. Obviously, rolling it downhill would get it going because it gives enough juice for the starter to start up. But maybe the battery is just dead. It could just be that. And then on his drive, it'll definitely get charged. But gasoline is a bigger problem.
Oh.
But I'm sure he can just siphon gasoline out of other cars that he finds along the way, which he probably will, and gas stations as well. I have an assumption here that he's going to roll into gas stations. And of course, there's going to be others wandering around checking in on him. And they'll just be like, hey, you need some gas? Here you go. Like they'll be there to help him out, like they always are. And he's going to be very suspicious of them. But I am curious to see.
Yeah, with this group, it feels like they would almost put up a billboard. We know you need gasoline. There's a station 10 miles ahead on the right.
Exactly.
We'll
and
turn
they
on
would
the
have
pump for
calculated it
you.
too. They'll be like, they'll know he probably has about 20 miles to go. And they'll be like, oh, turn off here. We got some gas 10 miles out. Or leave it on the main road. You can imagine just like pulling up, filling up containers. And like they know his car's going to run out of gas at approximately this place. And he'll be like, oh my God, I'm out of gas. And then the car will stall. And then he'll look up the road a quarter of a mile and be like, oh, what's that? Oh, a bunch of gasoline tanks. So that's probably what we're going to see. So that we rewound 3 days. It's 5,300 miles. Do you think that in the next episode, we're going to see Carol? So let's say, going from Vegas to Albuquerque is not a very long drive, actually. So she's going to be home within the day, unless she decides to stop somewhere on the way back. But so it gives him 3.5 days. Do you think in 3.5 days, he's going to drive all the way to Albuquerque? It's achievable. That's quite.
You have to sleep.
What else does he have to do, though? What else does he have to do, right?
Sleep.
Yeah, but if he drives 10 hours a day, he'll do it. Maybe not.
10 hours a day. I don't
10
think
hours a day
so.
can't. No, 10 hours a day can't do it, actually. So
even at 70 miles an hour for 10 hours constantly, you still wouldn't make it. You'd be about halfway, I think.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, that would be, he'd have to be driving 24 hours a day to get there. But who knows? Maybe he's that committed.
But also, I don't want to gloss over this last scene with his mom, which is
of course not. No, absolutely.
Really fun.
Yeah. It's fun, but it's also incredibly ominous. I love the way they photograph this. You just hear her talking. She's like a ghost. She's just talking and she's backlit, so we can't see her face. And it's just like this figure. And this like warm voice from the mother, who apparently is the person who's been delivering the food this whole entire time, the same actress. So it's interesting that they've used this, assuming that she has some connection to him, that he would still have some warmth for. But if they really had integrated her, unless she's oblivious to how much her son does not like her.
I think we all have experienced things with our parents where we
Yes.
are on very different pages as to
Yes.
what has happened in our past. So perhaps it's that kind of situation.
Yeah, it's fascinating for him to be like, "You're not my mother. My mother was a bitch."
Yes, I love
Oh
it.
god. But yeah, so this is what we have to look forward to. And the episode ends with I might be misappropriating this, but a kind of a Bollywood version of When You're Strange, the Doors
Yeah.
song. But at least it has a very heavy sitar. I'm not sure if it would actually be considered Bollywood style, but it was, yeah, an interesting. And apparently people are Shazamming this because I got a text message this morning from Darren who Shazammed this as well and sent me the link. I'm like, I already did it. I already
Nice.
shared that. It's on the Pluribus soundtrack, by the way, for anybody who wants to just listen to it. It's on the. They also had they have some pretty interesting covers on the in each one of these title sequences here on the show. But you can listen to it on Spotify or Apple Music or whatever you listen to. But two things that are already viral. One is obviously this has been Shazam, so I was looking for information on it. It comes up right away when you start Google searching. And the other thing that's a mini viral, I would assume, is I typed into my Google search Paraguay, and the autocomplete was Paraguay to Albuquerque.
Ha!
So
That's
people are trying to
great.
calculate how far away is Paraguay from Albuquerque.
So
I
funny.
wasn't alone. Okay, some speculation on things. So I had this, I'm curious if this show is going to explore this in more detail or not. But I had this theory of how this unified personality would need to have some kind of suppress some aspects of it, right? Of itself. So I was like, is it a complicated personality where maybe one aspect of it is saying that we need to hey, we might need to start harvesting food because otherwise we're going to kill more people, and there's some complexity to what is the correct course of action to save the most lives or something like that, like having an actual philosophical internal argument. Or is it just like this completely flattened out version of this personality that just follows these very basic rules? And it seems to be that one, right? Which I think is a less interesting version of this person, this unified entity, right?
Yeah, but it also seems like the only thing that would really be workable, right?
I guess, but still, you think about we all have complicated feelings about things. We have emotions that are more than one thing at a time. So it seems interesting. Like it does feel like they are being oppressed in some ways by this one size fits all simple set of rules for their behavior. It really makes me think about like my daughter, for example. My daughter is not so much now because she's getting a little bit older, but there was a period of time where she really cared. Do they like me? Do they think I'm a good person? And that was like this fixation she had. And as time goes by, you're like, well, you don't have to really worry about what everybody else thinks of you all the time, right? And
Mhm.
so you become a more complicated person. So I do wonder, is that what might happen here? That this entity is, of course, just a few weeks old. Maybe it will become more complicated over time. And maybe that's something that'll get explored. I actually hope that's the direction the show goes in. Although I'm not sure if that's the show we're going to get. It might just be like, how do you try to live by these very simple rules? And then the flaw of that. Because people are complicated, right? Think about it. If you joined everybody in the world, and I'm not saying like some people are complicated and other people are not. If you somehow glued everybody's persona together, everybody at some point gets jealous. Everybody at some point gets vindictive. Everybody has something that they're needy for, right? Just everybody has that experience of being needy for something. It might be different for everybody, but they all have that experience. So where does all those things go? Where does pettiness go? Like where do the it can't just all disappear overnight.
I don't think it all disappears overnight, but I think to at least go back to this idea of the philosophy that they're living by and tying that to my own personal experience with Jainism and what you aspire to as a Jain is to be able to let go of all of those negative emotions and just be one with the world, with the universe, and live a peaceful life. And so, if they have somehow managed to attain that, which is very close to nirvana, probably as close to nirvana as you can be living as a human being in the world, I think it could all be gone.
I guess that's an interesting point, right? If you have true ego death, then I guess you would.
Yeah.
All those things would go away, right? So that's a good point. It's like they just all took LSD. That's what happened.
Yeah, it's strange that would happen like flipping a switch, right?
Yeah.
I think that's something that you aspire to and evolve towards in our human experience, but maybe that's what this virus or whatever it is does.
I do hope that they explore it a little bit more. Like, we don't understand at all, and very much so because we're, of course, in Carol's perspective. We really don't understand the interiority of this thing, right? It's just what her is just this boogeyman for so far. So I would like to understand it a little bit more. And it also seems any kind of characterization we have of it is buffoonish. Like, they'll give her a nuclear bomb if she asks for it. They can't even, they're such innocent children, such like pure Buddhists, that they won't even pick up a flower or more
Right.
specifically pick food for themselves to eat. Seems very self-defeating.
No self-preservation can override the principles of it.
So here's a bigger question I have for you. This thing, so people have been thinking there's something nefarious with these people. And what I was wondering about, is there something nefarious going on here? But it's not these others that are nefarious. It is whoever is sending this broadcast. Because think about it, whoever you send this broadcast to, if the outcome is most of them are going to die away, then you're not trying to help these people out, right? You're trying to thin them out.
I'm thinking about what you said.
So is this like a weapon that someone is broadcasting to basically have the people on Earth kill each other off, kill themselves off, I should say?
Yeah, or they're going to come in and be alien overlords that
There goes
create
the
an
aliens that
army
you
of
don't want to see
worker
the
bees.
spaceship landing by the end of this season.
Yeah, this is my fear, right? Over the whole series, there better not be aliens or zombies at the end of this whole thing.
That's when you did turn on the show.
I think some people will be very disappointed if there are not aliens and zombies at the end of this whole thing. But I perhaps have a minority viewpoint there. But it is possible that they're just trying to harness resources, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I just
whoever's
think
left is left.
I just think that other than if this has happened somewhere before, and presumably this has happened before, that's why it's being transmitted, then whoever, if it ends up exterminating the population on that planet, then you're not going to pass that on and be like, hey, you guys should all try this. It's great. So, what is the real agenda of sending that broadcast? And that's what I'm curious about. But unfortunately, that doesn't mean that aliens might be coming. And I know, Sona, you do not want to see that.
Yeah, I really
They're not
don't.
coming soon, though. That's the good thing about it. Maybe.
Especially if this is going to be 3 seasons long.
Right, exactly.
Maybe we don't see the aliens till the very last episode. That would be fine.
Yeah, you'll be okay with that. You're like, all right. I liked everything except for the finale.
Yes.
Another thing I speculate on here too is Manousos is going to show up, of course, at some point, whether it's not next week's episode or not. Oh, by the way, this actor, I want to shout him out, Carlos Manuel Vesga. He has no American TV credits. It's all just
interesting
South American TV. And but anyway, we barely heard him speak, but very charismatic and very like holds the screen.
He seems great. I like watching him for sure.
Yeah, for literally someone you have to watch not speak almost at all. He really holds the screen, pretty magnetic. But yes, so I think that whole character is going to be interesting, especially when you see him, even like you think about Carol after her discovery, after the conversation she had with Diabate in this episode, that she's probably has in some little ways, softened a little bit on some of her stances, even on that video. And it did make me think about the fact that obviously she's dead set on putting things back the way they were. But I do wonder if all of a sudden her being the more moderate voice, with Manousos being like a true hardliner, that I would find that to be really interesting, where she's an outsider from the experience initially. She's an outsider within the surviving group. And now she's going to find another person who she thinks she's on the same page with, and then still be like, well, we can't kill them all. But calm down, buddy. Like, I'm very curious to see where she has now started a cult of just 2 people. but she might be hoisted by her own petard, as they say.
Yeah, that could be his approach. Get rid of everyone, and then the 12 of us will
Right.
recreate the human race.
Exactly. Like it's only the 12 of us. That's it.
Good thing she
And
froze those eggs.
exactly. There you go. They might pay off at some point. That's another interesting thing. We don't know if this immunity is genetic or not, but theoretically, they might want to procreate the survivors. They might want to have a conversation about, well, we should at least try to see if we have children that are immune to this, because if that's the case, well, then that's the only way you're going to have more of these type of people, right?
Mm-hmm.
So she might have to bust out her eggs. All right, so that wraps things up for this week. Very curious to see how things go next week. Maybe Manousos will show up by the end of next week. That's my guess, but I can't imagine him being there in 3 days. So maybe like next episode will cover a week, and he'll show up somewhere at some
I
point.
was about to say there is the possibility that between this episode and next episode, more time will elapse than
We
we
jump
have
ahead.
been seeing
Yeah.
elapse. Yeah, there'll be some sort of montage of what she's been doing for the next week or so. And
Or she could be like 4 days blackout drunk in her apartment, and then he
Also,
shows up at the
yeah.
door. That'd be funny. Okay, so everybody, I do want to talk to Sona about the beast in me. So we'll just transition over to that conversation. So I watched the first couple of episodes. Did I tell you this, or did you tell me, or maybe it was my sister? This is shot in New Jersey, down in Red Bank, right by where my sister lives.
Yeah, I actually looked it up. So I think your sister must have told you, but
Yeah.
it's very confusing because they very much lead you to believe that this is in Long Island, and maybe
Yeah.
it's supposed to be in Long Island, but then it's actually shot in New Jersey. And if you are familiar with the landscape of Long Island,
Yeah.
we were having conversations in my apartment of, well, maybe it's actually Connecticut or Westchester where they're shooting this, because it is not the landscape of Long Island for sure. And so that's why I Googled it and found it was New Jersey.
Yeah, it's in Red Bank, which is beautiful. Down the waterfront area of West Bank is Red Bank is really beautiful, and it's funny too because it doesn't look like you're in New Jersey. When I have all these pictures I used to take because I used to work right there, and you feel like you're like in Maine or something, at some kind of a fishing town. And so it's a good location for them to shoot there. Netflix, of course, is moving their entire. They started shooting all their shows here in New Jersey, and they got a giant studio is going to be built here, and I assume that's going to be Warner Brothers as well. So very exciting, lots of film production jobs here in New Jersey. Oh, and the mansions where she lives are actually not shot down in Red Bank; they're shot in Westfield, which is where my wife's family came from, and beautiful houses there in general. I love that shot in episode 1, by the way, where we see her house, which is this beautiful colonial house, obviously, probably well over $1 million, given Westfield, probably like $2 million house. And then she hears the alarm going off in the middle of the night. And there's this drone shot where we see the neighbor's house and her house, which is very nice, beautiful house. And then you see the palatial, three of her houses could fit in his house. It's this crazy house right next door, which I'm sure they basically shot in Westfield so they could have that dichotomy of, oh, she has a beautiful house. And then you're like, hold on a second. This guy's house is enormous. The 10,000 square foot house. So yeah, I enjoyed episode 1. I lost me on episode 3. I think I touched on this when I first talked about the show, and I couldn't get back into it. It was just that the show, I was very interested in this cat and mouse between the two of them. And the show by episode 3 seemed to be less and less about that. There's the whole situation with this police officer and this that's been drawn into this, and then his dad. And I'm like, what? I lost the interest in the show, which was really to see the two of them go at it, which maybe the show does come back to that. So
it does.
Tell me more about the rest.
Yeah. So without getting into spoilers or really diving into the plot, I will say that first of all, this is not an airtight plot by any means. And you cannot be looking for every I to be dotted and T to be crossed. But it is a very, for me, interesting plot. There were some subplots that were, I don't think we necessarily needed to go into these subplots in the level of depth that they did. But
is the cops part of that?
Some
of them,
not
yes,
as much as you think it's
okay,
going to be.
Good.
But the congresswoman who is opposing the
Oh, yes.
development is there's more time spent with her than I think there really needed to be. The whole Jarvis Yards
Yeah.
opposition. So, to your original question, though, the dynamic between Claire Danes and Matthew Rhys is, for me, really great. And they do return to that. And they do have some moments of the plot that really are so tense that my heart started to beat faster out of stress. Like a real great accomplishment to manufacture that kind of tension, I feel like. Now, did that tension really pay off? Maybe not. It was like at the end, the closing minute of an episode that gets you to
Yeah.
watch the next episode because you think, oh, have to know what's going to happen next. And then you think, well, this is picking up from a completely different spot where the last episode left off. What happened to that tension that was so jacked up? So again, not a perfect show, but a great dynamic between them. I really enjoyed them playing off each other. Some really interesting things happening in the plot, also some unnecessary things happening in the plot. But I know you had a concern about kind of the plot expanding and bringing in all these new people.
Yeah.
At a certain point, you do have a finite universe of people that you're meeting.
Okay.
And it probably is around episode 3 or 4 that nobody new is really introduced, and you just are working with that set of people for the rest of the show.
Okay. Yeah, that's not probably not enough to convince me to
Yeah,
back in.
I don't think it's necessarily something that you would enjoy, but I think it is a great show for people who are into things like that. Like, we have a joke in my apartment about my weekly viewership of a Dateline or 2020 episode. It's a dark humor about here's another show about a husband that killed his spouse, right? Because that's what it always is. This is a much less high stakes version because it's fiction. So I felt
Right.
much better about watching this. Like, I have a conflict about watching this true crime stuff where this is really someone's life and this woman really did end up dead. And now I'm vicariously having some form of entertainment of watching this story of why this husband killed his wife. Here, there's none of that guilt, right? Nor is there, I don't want to get into the actual spoilers of it, but anyway, this is a guilt-free version of watching those types of dynamics play out. It also reminded me of that show, and I forget the name every time. I think it was on HBO. It had Hugh Grant and Nicole Kidman
Oh,
living in the city.
oh
There's a
man.
private school child. Do you remember this?
Yeah, I didn't watch it, but I know what you're talking about. Oh man. Yes, I can't remember it now. But it had a
Right.
big twist at the end, right?
I'm gonna Google it real quick while we talk. Hugh Grant, Nicole, The Undoing.
The
That's what it
Undoing,
was.
yes. Mhm.
This is a lot like The Undoing in that it's aesthetically great to watch.
Mhm.
The Undoing took place in the city and the Hamptons, I think. Here, we're dealing with what I believe is supposed to be Long Island and the city. So it's pleasing to watch. It has recognized skilled actors. It has a very dramatic plot. I will say the plot was very similar to The Undoing in that exactly what you expect probably happened is what probably happened. but, but still, it's entertaining. The journey there is entertaining enough to make it worthwhile for me to have watched it.
Interesting. Have you seen, speaking of Netflix shows,
If you like The Undoing, you will like this. I will leave it at that.
I would say, based on everything you're just saying, if my wife did start watching episode 1, if she continues watching it, I will probably watch it with her. So that would be although she's behind on Pluribus and she's actually traveled to Florida this week and she is catching up on that show. So she'll be back in a couple of days and we'll have watched all of that. So maybe this will be the next thing we watch together. But did you ever, on Netflix, did you ever catch up on Black Rabbit by chance?
I didn't. I want to go back to it because I really do love Jason Bateman so much. And I feel like I'll watch anything that he's in. I haven't had the time. That seems like something that might be good to do over the holiday break.
Yeah, it might be. And my wife just caught up with it recently and she was totally hooked into it. So I would recommend it. I thought it had mixed reviews. I thought it was a lot of fun. It definitely has bad episodes in there, but I think overall it was pretty strong. I thought it did a really good job
Hmm.
of being about this idea that you are on this. It just works as a thriller. It's like the Uncut Gems, but dragged on for that kind of
Hmm.
tension from episode to
Hmm.
episode. It can't be that tense the whole way through because that would be it'd be rough watch to say the least. But it has some of that tension and some people just self sabotaging because they're just never happy with what they have. And that's an interesting theme, I thought, for sure. Oh, by the way, speaking of Uncut Gems, I do want to shout this out. I just saw this movie and I do want to call it out because, like I said, the National Board of Review just published their top 10 movies. This usually is very indicative of what gets nominated for
Hmm.
Best Pictures, Best Foreign Language, etc. About One Battle After Another, which is now available on digital, and we have a whole episode
Hmm.
breaking it down, is now available. So anybody who wants to rent that, do check it out. It's excellent. It's my number one movie so far this year, still, although I have things I have to catch up on. But Sona, the winner of Best Actress, and this is
I
my Best
know, I'm
Actress.
dying to see this. Yes, go ahead.
It's also my winner for Best Actress this year is Rose Byrne in it's like the dark side of you could really watch this with the platonic and be like, this is what's actually going on in her head when she's playing the cool girl on platonic. But it's if I had legs, I'd kick you.
Mhm.
And hearing the filmmaker, the woman who directed this and wrote this, that this is a lot of the details in here are directly from her own by her daughter was not able to digest food. They had to go to a
Mhm.
B in California, seeing doctors, and she wrote the script there. And it's very much what that is. And if you've seen the trailer for this at all, this is so harrowing. And it's often comedic, although it's so funny. You could consider this movie a comedy, an incredibly black comedy. And Rose Byrne is very good at the comedy in this. But you can also think about this movie as a straight up horror movie. And every parent out there, every single one of you, no matter how healthy a relationship you have with your kid, there are moments where, like, your kid at their worst is like, God, why can't they just make themselves a sandwich? Like, why is this
Mhm.
everything so difficult all the time? And that is like being in that experience. We never even see the other characters' faces, barely. We only see Rose Byrne's face. The camera's so close in on her. And it's you're in her perspective. And I brought up Uncut Gems. This is like the stressed out mom version of Uncut Gems. And just like that movie, you will feel like you're having a panic attack for the entirety of the film. So I told my wife I just recommended for her to watch it. And I was just like, it's fantastic. It's excellent, incredible filmmaking, an incredible performance. I never want to watch that movie again.
Mhm. Mhm.
It is so stressful, but it is a very impressive filmmaking.
I'm
But if you do
dying to
like that
see
kind of,
it.
yeah,
How can I watch it now?
I think it's available for digital rental. I think it just came out for digital rental this week, so it should be available to rent.
Mm.
I'll let
You know I
everybody
don't
know.
like to pay for things.
I know, although you pay for it
I'm
with
already
all those
paying for enough.
subscriptions.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I'll let everybody know if it becomes available on streaming soon. Some of these films come very quickly to streaming after their digital release. It all depends on who the distributor is. I think this is A24, I believe. So that means it will go to HBO Max. But there's
Gotcha.
usually a pretty big gap. So it might be a couple of weeks, I'm sorry, a couple of months before.
Mhm.
So probably right around the time of the Academy Awards, where she may very well, she's definitely going to get a nomination and she may very well win. And I love Rose Byrne. So
I
good
do
for
too.
her.
I think she's great.
Yeah. She's gives such an incredible performance here. The fact that you literally feel like you are in a horror movie and she can then make you laugh in the middle of it is pretty amazing, which is what parenthood feels like oftentimes. I got to tell you.
Mhm.
So you appreciate that. But if it cuts too close to the bone, it could be a very stressful watch.
It feels like something you have to really brace yourself to watch.
You might need to gird your loins, but
Yeah, it's
it's fun.
not one of those, "Oh, I got a couple hours to kill. Let's turn on this."
Yeah, but I very much appreciated watching it and thinking about so recently having finished this season of Platonic. And there's just certain things that mirror that. Very little, not tons. But every time when it does mirror platonic, I kept thinking, like, this is the dark side of platonic. This is what's
Yeah.
happening in between the funny bits of platonic. This is what's actually happening to her. But yeah, that's another thing to watch, and very good. The movie I liked. I'm very impressed with the filmmaking as well. It's not perfect, but I thought it was very good. One of the stronger films of the year. But this performance is, yeah. As soon as I saw this movie, I'm like, that's performance of the year for best actress for sure. So
And Conan O'Brien is in it too,
yes,
right?
he's a producer as well, and yeah, he's in it as well. A very unlikable character. So interesting. Although he redeems himself somewhat. But anyway, it's an interesting performance. So but a small part, not a huge part.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, 98% of the film is close on her face, I should say. Oh, you know who else is in this movie, by the way? ASAP Rocky, the rapper, who was
Yes.
also in Highest to Lowest. He's terrific. He was good in Highest to Lowest. He's only in a few scenes, but really important scenes in the movie. And I was impressed that he had like a real charisma, but I'm like, is he giving a performance or is he just channeling some kind of charisma? He gives a real performance here. And I'm like, yeah, this guy's an up and comer. I can't wait to see him in other things. All right. So there's some more stuff catching up end of the year. I'll have an end of year list where I'm starting to put together my best of list. I have a bunch of movies I still have not seen that I have to watch before I can finish that list. But around during the holidays, I'm sure I'll put out some episodes where I recap some of my favorite movies of the year, performances, etc. And yeah, so look forward to all of that. Thank you again, Sona. We have three more episodes of this show.
Wow, only 3. I
That's
wonder
it.
what's going to happen.
This is the end game. We're getting to the end game now.
Wow.
So, and I'm sure it'll end on a big cliffhanger for season 2. So I can't wait to see where it goes. Yeah, and I once again, my favorite thing about this show, I have no idea what's going to happen next at all. I don't even know what kind of show it's going to be from week to week.
Yeah.
So a pleasure for that, if nothing else. All right, Sona, thank you again.
Thank you.
I'll talk to you soon.
Talk to you later.